Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Cima Strategic Case Study E3 Essentials Revision segment number 6. So this segment is very important, and it is in fact something that Cima has recently added to its syllabus because the world is changing, and with the world, the Cima qualification aspires to continue to change itself. I think you know what I'm going to discuss in this segment. Let's have a look. This is going to be on digital strategy. So before we dig deep into the content itself, let me kindly remind you what you must do. Please have a notebook and pen on the ready. Follow the slides and my explanation carefully. Make notes as you deem necessary. And please maintain a list of key topics that you feel you're weak at so you can self-revise later, and maintain a list of key performance and management tools that can help modeling the answers in the strategic case study. So let's try and look at what digital strategy means and what are we supposed to know as far as digital strategy is concerned. So it ideally begins from this concept of the responsibility of a leader, because if you are managing a company in modern times, digital is a highly critical aspect to the success of the business. And in driving that success through digital, there are so many areas that we need to pay attention to. The economics of digitization, the various revenue models, the digital ecosystem, the digital consumption aspect, the data and metrics that are available for us to identify if we are doing well in the digital space, leadership and cultural aspects, and the overall responsibility of the leader himself. So these are the elements that we are going to understand digital strategy through. All right, so digital strategy. Now, digital disruption is essentially the transformation, and really unexpected, right? Unexpected transformation in today's business, which is commonplace. And disruptive technology relates to instances where technology is used to fundamentally change and disrupt the existing business model in an industry. We know good examples like Facebook and Uber, where digital has been used massively in terms of capability, in terms of using the digital capability. The entire industry has been disrupted. Leadership plays a key role in successfully driving digital disruption across an organization. This is also closely linked to change management and leadership. Digital technology also opens up new revenue models. So we will be looking at the revenue models very closely. There are actually 9 revenue models. It is critical for modern businesses to understand and profile the digital customer. So as a business, it is important that we also understand that the consumer lives in the digital space, in the virtual space. Say for example, if you are working with me in the new model that I have come up with to deliver my case study content, anyone in the world, anybody who has an internet connection anywhere in the world can work with me, and you would ideally be a digital customer to me because our connectivity is in the digital space. And to thrive in the digital space, it is also imperative that organizations think forward and keep ahead of customer expectations. So there are different approaches in the digital space that gives us this edge, gives us the opportunity to stay ahead of the customer. We will be looking at that as well. And digital also opens up massive opportunity to track and manage data through digital traction like scale, active usage and engagement, and different metrics as well. So these, the culmination and the combination of all of these different aspects, right? You're thinking about digital disruption, the leadership aspect, then the different revenue models, understanding the customer, and how do you stay ahead of the customer, being always 2 steps ahead, and making sure that you have the right tools to scale your approach, scale your business. You have the right business model to engage your customer for longer durations. Like say for example, if you take the story concept in WhatsApp, in Instagram, in Facebook, right? This story concept has heavily engaged the consumer to stay on the screen for longer time durations and in the screen in that app itself. So this is what we call active usage that translate to engagement. So those metrics are heavily important, and the combination of all of these things are what we genuinely call digital strategy. So how do you become an employer of choice in the digital era? There are few things that you absolutely must think about and execute. Number one, formulate a long-term working strategy for millennials, because millennials are a group that are in that right mind space, that space they operate in, where if you take the today's millennial, you're ideally talking about a group of people or a group of young individuals who were born maybe after 1995, right? That space. So even if you have children, if you have brothers around that space, you know how digitally engaged they are. So there has to be a long-term working strategy for millennials. To do this, you have to identify the relevant positions that employees will occupy during their career with the company, and then create suitable promotional opportunities. So as time passes by, we will be recruiting these millennials, and therefore we will really have to look at how they can be incorporated, because their style is different, their attention spans are different, the way they approach work is different. We will have to look at different ways of absorbing them into the company if we want to become an employer of choice in this new modern digital era. Work with staff to formulate company values together. This means listening to and taking note of the aspirations of those working for the business. Senior management should do this in person, not just as a communication sent company-wide. There has to be active engagement, active listening to what the staff is thinking, what is in the minds of the staff. Empower the workforce and give them incentives to perform. For example, through long-term company share plans, project leadership responsibilities, and or training opportunities. So the idea is that you try and empower your workforce to operate and thrive in the digital space. Build workspaces that attract digital talent. So this relates to the physical layout and appearance of the working environment. Flexibility and a dynamic appearance in the workplace inspires creativity and collaboration. Thought should also be given to allowing staff to work from home on occasions and flexible working hours. So I don't think that there is any better example than what we are facing, what we have been facing over the past year or so with COVID-19, the global pandemic. We have been in a position to harness the capabilities of digital in a massive sense, in a massive, it has actually been a positive to thrive in the digital space. So a lot of online businesses have been booming, and those of them who have the digital capability, those of them who already had online jobs, who had that experience, thrived during COVID-19. So that is what we are talking about here. There should be thought given to flexibility, thought given to attracting the right talent, the right digital talent, so they can be incentivized in various ways. Somehow you're trying and thinking about building a highly digitally capable workforce. Create policies that support collaboration and knowledge sharing tools. Policy that supports collaboration and knowledge sharing tools. This can include encouraging staff to use platforms like Facebook at Work or Yammer or Sprinkler, or hardware preferences such as being to use your own laptop in the workplace. So there should be policy, right? Work policy, employee policy that supports the mindset of collaborative and knowledge sharing needs of the digital consumer, as I started to say, we are talking about millennials and Generation Y and Generation Z, who are the most digital savvy, and they have so many needs, and they are in some way successfully multitasking as well to some extent. So those needs have to be taken into account, and if they ultimately deliver the job effectively, we are good. Right? So these are the critical things that you have to think about when you, or if you are targeting to become an employer of choice in the digital era. Leadership in the digital era is the next idea that we are going to look at. So I already stressed on the fact that leadership is highly important. Now, according to the World Economic Forum, CEOs should fulfill 6 key roles in the digital age. Right? The CEO in the digital age has to ideally fulfill these 6 roles, and we know that the World Economic Forum is very thorough with their work, with their analysis, with their surveys. So these 6 would be very useful for us to learn, even if you see yourself in the future or currently as a leader in the digital age. You can ask yourself if these skills are already embedded within you, and if there are areas, how would you improve them? A creator of vision and a mission. The company's mission statement should be expanded to encompass a transformation purpose which directly links to the idea of digital. A strategic planner. This is nothing new, but the focus is different. There should be a move from 5-year to 1-year planning cycles driven by data and analysis, because you have the digital capability. Greater focus should be on experimentation rather than long-term planning. A driver of information-based business models. Find and develop new products that are fully data and information based for scalability. So there used to be a time back in 1960s, 70s, 80s, 90s where information about the customer, right, visibility about the customer, visibility about trading patterns, visibility about customer behavior was quite less. The only evidence we had at one point was asking the customer and just taking it at face value. But today we don't live in that age. Today we live in an age, if you browse a website, the backend of the website can track how many seconds you spent in each of the sub pages, how long you spent before you decided to move on a certain space, right? Facebook can track the time that you spent looking at an advertisement and deciding to scroll, and they will identify a pattern to things, and they are able to predict your behavior to a large extent, which is what dictates the entire advertising platform itself. So these capabilities are all enabled by digital. The CEO should also be an enabler of the shift to on-demand operating models. On-demand operating models. So the CEO should champion the benefit that can be gained from communities in the workplace, crowdsourcing and staff on demand. Right? So this highly flexible, highly responsive characteristic or the nature has to be there with that CEO. An innovation promoter who has an open-minded outlook and encourages innovation, if not thriving in the digital space, is very, very difficult. So even if we look at Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, Iger, you name it, right? You name anyone, even at some point, even Travis Kalanick. All these leaders, Bill Gates, all these leaders have this innovation promoter mindset, and that has been critical in their ability. Like, think about Steve Jobs. How could I forget him? Steve Jobs, one of the world's biggest and most prolific innovation promoter that created some world-changing products. And an operational excellence driver who identifies ways in which automation can be introduced into processes in all departments of the organization. So according to the WEF, CEO should fulfill 6 key roles. A creator of vision and mission, should be a good strategic planner, a driver of information-based business models, an enabler of the shift to on-demand operating models, an innovation promoter, and an operational excellence driver, someone who chases operational excellence resiliently. And on that note, we can move to the idea of how do you foster a digital culture within the company. We have spoken about culture, we have spoken about the elements within the culture through McKinsey's 7S or the cultural web. But how do you foster a digital culture? Now, to create and adopt a successful digital culture, leaders must first recognize what factors distinguish a digital culture from others. So these include having a strong mission statement and a clear sense of purpose, a lean business structures with small cross-functional teams as opposed to individual divisions working as separate silos, right? A diverse workforce with good digital skills. So leaders can then focus on 4 key areas in order to move towards a digital culture. So given that you have a strong vision and mission, a lean business structure that is agile and that can respond to change fast, and a diverse workforce with highly skilled in the digital space, you can now focus on 4 key areas. Number 1, communication. So communication by digital means needs to be encouraged. This should certainly not replace face-to-face conversations completely, but staff should be encouraged to communicate with each other in an honest and open style using all available digital channels like social media, blogs, forums, webcasts, webinars, videos, and shared mailboxes, etc. Right? Honest, open communication through digital channels, which is probably what we are all engaged in during the pandemic. The second, journey management. So the leadership team needs to be at the forefront of the cultural change. Now, in order for this to take effect at the operational level, middle management need to be encouraged to think in different ways. So the operational layer is the foundation, right, of the business. So they are given instructions and they are led by the middle management. So the middle management has to think differently here. Creativity needs to be released and training should be provided so that middle managers recognize how to achieve this. Further support can come from implementing the right HR policies, rules, etc. That is the second one, the journey management aspect. As you are moving to a digital culture, you have to think about this. The third is making the changes visible. So visual aids like diagrams and charts on office walls highlighting the journey that the business is undertaking. So you can ideally just use digital tools, digital platforms, digital softwares to visualize and present your move, your shift towards digital, and that will help people see what is going on and they will embrace this. They like charts, people like to see progress, and if you visually represent progress, you realize, wow, we're doing some things are changing. And with good communication and good journey management, there we go. We have a good, slowly moving company towards a successful digital culture. Finally, continuous change monitoring has to happen. I mean, monitoring is important whatever you do. Even in this case, it is extremely important. Using tools such as feedback surveys and performance monitoring to highlight gains made. So those are the 4 key areas that leaders can undertake when they move towards a digital culture. Next, let's focus on the revenue models. Now, as you make your company digitally capable, you start to think about making money digitally as well. No? So these are the 9 revenue models that digital has opened up that didn't exist in the traditional sense. What are they? Number 1, the transaction revenue model, a traditional approach whereby goods are sold from one party to another through digital channels. Capacity leasing, the organization has a form of resource such as machine time, asset availability or human time and supplies such capacity to customers. Third one is licensing, another traditional revenue source. Instead of making a product itself, the organization licenses its technology, brand or intangible assets to another organization for a defined period of time. Licensing on the digital space, you let someone else use your brand and you charge a license fee. Then subscription, right? What is very popular even with Microsoft Office or Office 365 or Zoom or various Google packages. You have the subscription revenue model, heavily popular. Something that you pay for to Cima as well, but that is from a traditional sense, no. But even in the digital space, you can look at subscription revenue model, and ideally Cima's revenue model is one of the aspects of primary revenue sources for Cima is their subscription revenue, and of course on the other end the exams revenue. So products or services are subscribed to and paid for in advance. This could be for a short or long period of time. For example, Netflix allows subscribers to cancel their payments at any point in time. So Netflix is one good example for subscription revenue model and the success of it. Then you have commission. Revenue is earned through matching sellers to customers. For example, as well as selling its own products through its website, Amazon also allows third-party retailers to market through the same platform for a fee. So you can allow some other form of a third party to use your space and charge a fee as a commission. It could even be prorated, it could be a percentage, it could be a per unit sale. Either way, you can earn commission revenue in the online space. The sixth one is definitely the most popular nowadays, advertising revenue, particularly for social media organizations, but not purely restricted to such businesses. For example, BT generates revenue through allowing advertisers to use its email platforms. Right? I don't need to go far. You know, Facebook is one company that heavily relies on advertising revenue, and that was their fundamental business model after a certain point. The next one is trading. Now, it is possible to identify circumstances where the demand or supply market forces are producing a sale value which is mispriced. Traders can use technology to identify opportunities to buy at a low price and sell when more realistic prices are in play. So there are so many things in the internet that are undervalued. What traders can do is purchase these undervalued assets and then trade them to make money. You obviously have the donations side to things. Acts of philanthropy can result in intangible benefits to the donor. Now, if you take, there are even, for example, the website The Guardian. Okay, it is a not-for-profit news outlet, and it has a separate tab that says donate us. We are a free entity, we work hard, you can donate us. Even to Wikipedia you can donate. So donations is one sort of revenue model. And then subsidies, often found in public sector organizations, whereby subsidies are given to improve quality of service in areas which cannot be fully funded by traditional revenue models. So you subsidize various services that you provide in the digital space, and that would be one other option, especially say for example affiliate marketing. This concept of affiliate marketing, where YouTubers heavily use this, where they promote a product, let's say NordVPN or whatever, right? They promote a product and then they say this is subsidized, you use this particular link, you get 40% off. But what happens is, with that subsidy, the company is actually pushing more volume of a product that has a subscription revenue model. Good money there. So these are the 9 revenue models. Let me quickly remind you: the transaction model, capacity leasing, licensing, subscription, commission, advertising, trading, donations, and subsidies. The 9 digital revenue models. And that brings me to the concept of digital ecosystems. Now, by and large, in the first segment itself, we understood that ecosystem means everything, the entire environment, all the components of the environment. So here The need for the organization to recognize that it is part of a broader ecosystem is even more apparent in a digital context. Now, in order to keep up with the increasing demand of customers, organizations need to view themselves as part of a broader attempt to create value. Otherwise, the customer expectations are unlikely to be satisfied. So, as demand is increasing and as customer requirements become more and more complex, organizations have to look at themselves as part of a bigger ecosystem. So this will inevitably mean that the business leader will need to consider how a participant in the ecosystem will impact on his or her own organization's strategy. What is each organization's function within the broader ecosystem? In the digital space, in its association to the digital capabilities. Like, for example, having a website. Simple as that. Right? When you have a website, you basically have different teams allocated to it, you're updating it, the design, the product updates, the back-end development, all of that. So if these are functions, what is each of the functions' role, especially within the broader ecosystem? You can ask 3 key questions to evaluate this. Number 1, the precise role of the participant within the environment. What is that participant bringing to the party? So whenever you have different elements, we already discussed, ecosystem is different stakeholders, different elements within the larger environment. So when you have a element, when you have a new stakeholder, when you have a digital stakeholder, you're asking, what is the precise role of the participant within the environment? What is that participant bringing to the party? Now, when I established my educational consultancy arm, and I realized that organically, because I used to do a lot of physical work, going and meeting people, but organically in the digital space, I realized that YouTube is one key stakeholder. So I asked the question, what is YouTube bringing to the party if I start to use YouTube as a tool of or a medium of communication? And my goodness, right? I have been able to reach out to probably many of you who got to know me through YouTube. The second one, each participant's reach through the environment. This relates to the participant's ability to extend activity or interactions through the environment. Take Facebook for example. How many active accounts, user accounts do they have operating at any given time? My God, probably as a digital participant, as a digital partner to you or your business, Facebook in terms of scale is the largest. And the third question you can ask is, what is the capability or the key value proposition? This is the range of activities that participants are able to pursue or undertake in the environment. So you can ask 3 key questions whenever a new element is introduced to the larger ecosystem in the digital space. 1, what is the precise role? 2, what is the participant's reach? And 3, what is their capability or the key value proposition? These are the questions that will answer you very well what that particular element can offer to you or can work with you or can in partnership deliver and execute and implement and achieve within the larger ecosystem. Next, digital consumption. Right, the consumer's side to things, right? What does the consumer do? So digital consumption, we identify a few drivers, key drivers to digital consumption. What drives a person to buy digitally, to consume a digital product? Mobile and internet penetration. As I mentioned a couple of times before, without the internet, none of this would be possible. And the smartphone has revolutionized reach. In the far corners of the world, people with a smartphone can watch a YouTube channel and access content. The increasing rate of mobile phone ownership Combined with access to the internet, with mobile beginning to exceed broadband, it is estimated that by 2025, the number of smartphone subscriptions will reach 4 billion, with much of the growth coming from emerging economies. I think that number has been put to shame now. Second driver, connected devices. The number of connected devices are expected to grow from 2.5 billion in 2009 to 30 billion devices by 2020, and we only have a 7 billion population, right? So this is almost a four times multiple of that. This will help enable real-time customization of products and services, and this is where the booming technology of Internet of Things has come into play. Third driver, data analytics and the cloud. The increasing use of e-commerce platforms, social networks, apps, etc. will result in increased need for automated data analytics. Fourth one, user interfaces. Advances in how human beings interact with machines, for example, through voice recognition or motion tracking systems, means that carrying out tasks becomes quicker and more efficient for humans. You know that, for example, the Apple iOS has one of the most advanced user interfaces, one of the most user-friendly, ease of use user interfaces, and digital user interfaces are one aspect of how digital consumption is driven. There will be banners, notifications, colors, even the colors dictate terms, which is why, for example, my screen is almost all the time black and white unless I'm watching something that is important, because I don't want the colors to stimulate my brain and keep that dopamine coming in, which gets you addicted to the screen. Global accessibility. Rising living standards in developing economies means that more and more people are gaining access to the internet, and so increased connectivity. So look at these key drivers that drive the business in the digital consumer age. And finally, increasing urbanization. The growing percentage of people who live in urban as opposed to rural areas. So urbanization has promoted digital massively, correct? The United Nations estimates that from approximately 54% of the global population in 2014, this will grow to almost 60% by 2050. Because people are, well, with COVID-19, I think this number it could slow down, because people might feel safer in their rural village-based homes than coming to the city, which is, heavily densely populated, and therefore, especially with a pandemic sort of environment, I think this number will slow down. But still, the impact of urbanization will never be terminated with the advancements of technology and accessibility that we are injecting to global cities. So, key drivers of digital consumption. What enables the digital consumer to consume more? Mobile and internet penetration, connected devices, data analytics and the cloud, user interfaces, global accessibility, and increasing urbanization. And that brings me to the idea of the digital consumer. So what does the digital consumer want? Let's say you are a digital consumer. Let's think about yourself, right? You want tailor-made products for you, don't you? Contextualized interactions are what we call them. Everything that you do, even if you log into an e-commerce website, why do you create a user account? Right? When you log into YouTube, why do you have to use your Gmail account? Because when you go into YouTube, for example, it is tailor-made to your preferences. If you prefer movie trailers and songs, those are what will appear. If you prefer documentaries and scientific invention related videos, those are what will appear. Tailor-made. Seamless experience across channels. So you want to be able to access whatever you want to access through the laptop, through the iPad, through the iPhone, wherever you go, there should be a seamless connectivity. This is a massive demand of the digital consumer, which is why even if you look at a website development requirement today, consumers are heavily, or in fact, users or developers are pushed, because I work with a few developers. I know that the interactive nature, that you build a website where it's optimal to use in the tab, to use in the laptop, to use in the desktop, to use in the smartphone, that is expected. Seamless experience, anytime, anywhere. Well, anytime, anywhere, that internet is available, because without the internet nothing is possible. But the internet reach, my goodness, unbelievable today. Great service, it doesn't matter who provides it. I mean, most of your digital now, this is of course education and serious business, but most of your digital purchases, you have no clue as to who is behind them, right? You just buy. Say if you go to Amazon, you choose your products, you buy them, you check them out, or you include them in your cart. You go to the cart, check out of the cart, make your payment, and just wait for the goods, and the goods arrive. Great service, it doesn't matter who provides it. So the digital consumer wants so many things, including this concept of self-service. And isn't it self-service, going into the app, choosing what you want and making the order all by yourself? Fine. So these are the needs or the wants of the digital consumer. And ideally, complete transparency. There has to be the peer review and advocacy aspect. This is why even when you go to a let's say you go check into a hotel, right? The moment you check out of the hotel, you get asked to rate the hotel, right? The moment you use a cab or a taxi through Uber, the moment you finish your trip, you get to rate the cab, you get to rate the delivery, because peer review, the ratings that you see in the digital space have become very, very important. So as far as the digital consumer is concerned, these are the key elements that define what the digital consumer wants. On that note, how do you keep ahead of the customer? Right. So there are actually a few initiatives, I can call them initiatives, that companies can use to stay ahead of the consumer. One is called design thinking. Now in design thinking, instead of designing a single product or service that can be marketed to many customers, there should be a shift in mindset to designing many experiences for one customer. This must be mixed with the ability to constantly learn and adapt as customer needs change. So it's really just going back, taking a step back and looking at things from the customer's perspective and evolving with the customer. You give the customer many things, and then you sort of confuse the customer, right? Because the customer has so many things to engage with. And as that happens, the customer's experience can be used to learn and design continuously newer and more innovative products and keep the customers engaged continuously. Then you have experiential pilots. This refers to the need to monitor how customers behave and to gain an appreciation of their reaction to new experiences. Right? So you offer experiential pilots. Now you could say my introduction to the SCS with AZB session, the live Zoom session, was an experiential pilot where I offered people to actually log in and work with me and listen to me and ask me questions and see how I interact. Because I fundamentally believe in this space, you offer the student the chance to choose which lecturer or which initiative, which institute you want to work with, because you're working with mature students. So an experiential pilot can be really useful to stay ahead of the customer, because even if you look at Steve Jobs, right, he is famously remarked for giving the customer things that the customer didn't even know they wanted, they needed. and that was done in some way or form to small samples through experiential pilots. Then you have the idea of prototyping. Instead of waiting until a new product has been perfected before bringing it to market, an organization should recognize that speed to market is vital. So therefore, because anyway there is heavy competition in the space and in the market, so prototyping can be highly useful to send something out very soon. And if you look at technologies like 3D printing, 3D printing is a technology that enables prototyping heavily, because with that technology you can build a prototype that used to take months and sometimes weeks and months in those day and age. Today you can use 3D printing to build a prototype as soon as possible, very fast, and deliver things very quickly, and ultimately execute matters very fast. The last one is brand atomization. Organizations will need to design their offerings so that they can be more widely distributed and be part of the platform that is offered by other providers. So you sell your brand not based on one place, one outlet, one location. Your brand is, it has that flexibility to be sold through many places, many channels. That is what you generally refer to as brand atomization. You place your brand in different places, right? You place your brand on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on WhatsApp, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Snapchat, right? And you further your reach as much as possible. These are things you can do to keep ahead of the customer. Finally, a critical topic that we need to discuss is how do you now, after executing all of these things, how do you measure your success? This is the concept of key performance indicators in the general strategic sense, but now we are trying to focus on the digital aspect of things. Now, digital traction metrics, while they cannot give assurance about the ROI that an organization is enjoying from its digital transformation, I'm talking about digital traction metrics, digital KPIs in simple words. They do provide evidence as to how attractive the organization's product or services are to customers by looking at a combination of metrics in certain areas, focusing mainly on customer behavior. The organization can gauge both the appeal of its products or services and how quickly they are likely to be adopted in the market. So in the digital space, you can basically measure everything. And if you measure customer behavior, because everything you do in the digital space is quantified, even my movement of the mouse pointer from this point to this is measured. Right? And that capability is huge, and it is what has led to the concept of big data and the need for big data analytics as well. Three areas are usually measured as an alternative to ROI when you're operating in the digital space. Number one, scale. So scale relates to the number of people who are showing an interest in the product or service. Typical metrics could include the number of visitors, unique users, the number of registered users, the growth in registrations per month, or organic user acquisition. So think about or associate yourself to a digital business. I can very beautifully connect it to my YouTube channel metrics, because for each video and for the overall channel, I get the number of visitors, the unique view count, the number of registered users, etc., etc. The second one is active usage. Now this refers to the frequency with which a user interacts with the organization. Appropriate metrics could include the number of active users and daily active users. So this is a big number for Facebook. Daily active number of accounts. They continuously measure that. And even though Facebook has 5 plus or nearly 7 billion user accounts, their daily active user base is only about 3 billion accounts. That is an important number. Thirdly, engagement. These measures look at the degree to which the user has engaged with the organization. So now from scale, that is how many customers are interested, to active usage, how many customers at a minimum level use your service, to engagement, how many customers actively engage with the organization, build a conversation, talk, exchange words, exchange chats, share your content, active engagement. Suitable metrics may include time spent on site, net promoter score, etc. Okay. So these are the three critical areas that we measure as an alternative to ROI, because measuring ROI, return on investment, in the digital space is a little bit of a tricky thing. So instead of looking at ROI, you look at scale, active usage, and engagement. And on that note, I want to take a moment to focus on the finance function in the digital world. And overall, Cima classifies this into 4 levels. And we have already looked at it in the sort of case study introductory sessions, where I look at the less automation to high levels of automation spectrum. Now here, in level 4, you are managing processes and applying accounting rules to assemble and extract data. So you need systems and technologies of recording here. Level 3, technical specialists providing insights in their respective areas. In here, you need systems and technologies of interpretation. And as you move to level 2, strategic partnerships for value, to influence and shape how the organization creates and preserves value. Here, you need systems and technologies of engagement. And finally, level 1, offering strategic leadership, systems and technologies of governance and oversight. And today we live in a day and age, if you take a simple, or let's say you take Oracle ERP or SAP systems for enterprise resource planning, they have all 4 types or all 4 levels of systems. They have their lowest level systems and software for recording, then they have systems for interpretation, thereafter they have systems for engagement, and then there are systems for governance and oversight, different views in the same software, right? And these are the elements that drive the finance function in the digital world. So I guess what they are trying to say is that the finance function itself is getting digitized, and as Cima accountants, you have to think about this. You have to think about your digital capability. I actually have some additional documents, additional reading content that you will be able to access in the Google Drive folder about various digital aspects that Cima is taking large strides toward. And on that note, I want to take your attention to an interesting concept: digital technologies. The awareness of technologies, right? The awareness, knowing these technologies, are viewed as critical for transforming businesses. So if I ask you a question, how many of you are thorough in understanding, okay, it's not about software or coding, but how many of you know what these technologies do? Okay, try to think about it. Advanced analytics, cloud capabilities, blockchain capabilities, data visualization capabilities, process robotics, cognitive computing, and in-memory computing. And Cima actually did a survey, and that result is what is depicted here: the percentage aware of technology and the percentage of those aware of and who think technology will be critical to transform businesses. As you can see, cloud, advanced analytics, process robotics, or in other words, process automation, data visualization, pretty much all of these technologies are commanding a very important and very significant place, nearly above 50% from both ends. In what they are trying to say is simply that as chartered management accountants, you, me, all of us have to have a thorough understanding of what these technologies mean, ideally for the concept that nobody should be able to fool us when we are running a business. And that marks the end of segment 6, the digital strategy aspect of things. And on that note, I hope you learned a lot, and I hope this, because I did go to a little bit of extra content with respect to digital, and that connection to how the finance function slowly progresses, the various technologies are important, because as far as the strategic case study is concerned, it's a leadership paper, and Cima has more recently increasing their tendency to test the leadership sides or the leadership skills that are important in driving digital strategy, which is why we looked at the entire spectrum or all of the topics that relate to digital strategy. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope the learning has been fruitful. Keep working, keep smiling, keep learning, and thank you.